Hello. Today we're going to talk about some spine stuff that we can do. We're gonna focus primarily on segmentation because that is kind of the most important component of having a healthy spine. The better that we can segment between each individual vertebrae, the more potential movement we have across that whole range of motion. Unlike all the other joints in the body that require rotation to have independence, the spine requires that we have segmented flexion and extension. So each individual piece of the spine can flex and extend independently, creating a whole system of joints that can then move more in rotational capacities. So what we're going to focus on first is just practicing the segmentation. We'll go into some pails and rails, and then we'll come back and do some more targeted segmentation. So to practice, I'm just going to talk you through two really slow segmented CatCow. Now I find that when I sit up, hi Rupert, when I sit up, I have to tuck my pelvis first, crunch my rib cage down, and then tuck my chin. And as I'm going to reverse here, I'm focusing on the lowest spot of my back, my tailbone, and I'm going to try and just tip my pelvis forward and round that piece. By no means do you have to have your hand on your low back, but you're actively crunching your rib cage down towards your hips. You're rounding your upper back as you tip your pelvis forward and slowly tilt into extension. So you're crunching, upper back stays round as you tilt the pelvis forward. Once you can no longer tilt any further, take the base of your rib cage, the last couple ribs that you have, and drive them down towards the floor. The top of your rib cage is going to pull up towards the wall in front of you. That's thoracic extension. And lastly, lift the chin. Now this is the fun one. We're going to hold our chin and chest up in this position. So I'm actively pulling my sternum towards the wall in front of me, lifting my chin as high as I can. And then we're going to repeat that same movement just in reverse. So starting from the pelvis first, tuck, keep lifting the chin and the chest, and continue to tuck the pelvis. Keep going. Once you've maxed out that pelvic tuck, then I want you to crunch the rib cage down. Keep that chin up. Crunch the rib cage, chin up, chin up, chin up. Keep crunching, and then slowly tuck the chin. Whew, that was one. Let's do another one. Slowly extend the low back. Flare the base of that rib cage down towards the floor. Top of the rib cage up towards the wall in front of you. And then pull that chin back and up and reverse. Tuck the pelvis. Keep that chin up as you crunch the rib cage all the way down and up. Those are our 2 reps of segmented CatCow. Now going at that speed and with that intensity can be incredibly valuable for developing a spine that is not only strong but has more movement potential. The second thing I want to go through is expanding on that range of motion. So this is pails and rails for the spine. This one can be pretty tough. We're going to do 2 varieties. I'll just demonstrate one of each. You can add these in to your workouts, or if your back is feeling stiff, I would start at a low intensity always for pails and rails. So today we'll do these at like a 3 or a 4 out of 10, not super duper intense, more so just understanding how to guide tension into areas of the body. So for this one, for our flexion pails and rails, we're going to round our back as much as we can. And now to create tension, I'm going to drive my hands forward and my feet back. I'm going to tuck my toes and I'm going to squeeze the floor so that they don't actually move, but it's the intention of that movement. So round the back, tuck the pelvis, get as flexed as you can. Take a big deep breath. And at like a 3 out of 10, not super intense, just drive the hands forward and the feet back. Like you're trying to spread the floor apart between your wrists and your knees. Again, not super intense, just driving tension through the spine. 5, 4, 3. Hold this position. 2. Slowly relax. You're going to stay rounded, but relax that push. And now for our rails contraction, we're going to try and shorten everything on the front side of the body. So same exact position, but now rather than pushing, we pull. We're going to try and pull our hands and knees together, keeping that back as round as you can get. 5, 4, 3, 2, Slowly relax. 1. Give me a couple cat-cow. 2 full cat-cow. And then on your third one, we're going to go all the way into extension. So now I want you to arch your back as much as you can. And now we're going to go through pails and rails in this position. Again, operating at super low intensities as we're getting used to this stuff. For this one, the long stuff is now on the front side of the body, all of our anterior tissue. So our pails contraction is going to be the reverse. Now we're going to try and pull our hands and knees in as we're lifting our chest up. So my chest is up as high as it can get, and for my pails contractions, pulling in. Squeezing those wrists and knees together. 5, 4, 3, 2, nice even tension, and you just slowly dial it back down to 0. Stay in that position. For our rails contraction, now we're going to drive the hands forward and the feet back as we're lifting the chest. Go ahead and start that push. This is going to make that mid-back really squeeze, lift that chest up even more. More chest up. Keep pushing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly relax. Couple more cat-cow. Tuck the pelvis, crunch the rib cage, tuck the chin, and extend. So the better that we can move through that segmentation, each individual piece, the more opportunity there is for us to create rotation at that individual joint. So now we're going to go through some more specific segmentation practice. This will be for the neck, for the T-spine, and then for the lumbar spine. For our neck, it's relatively straightforward. We've done neck capsule cars before, but I want to show you a regressed version. I like doing these because when we're doing our neck capsule cars throughout the day, we have the weight of our head that we're working with. And for some people, that can be just a little bit too much. So by doing these supine or on your back, you can take some of the weight out of the neck car, and it may benefit you a little bit more. And I'll show you how to progress it from on the ground to upright. So to start, I'm taking my hat off here. So to start for this one, just resting your head against the floor, shoulder blades together, no movement out of the rest of our spine. So wherever you settle yourself, try and maintain that position with your rib cage and lumbar spine. And then from here, we're just going to pull our chin straight back, keeping our head against the floor, and then tuck our chin straight down, keeping our head against the floor. So this is a really easy way to practice segmentation under even lighter load than before. And so if you have some funky neck issues, this can be a really powerful tool to add to your daily routine. I do these before I go to sleep and right when I get up in the morning. Now, if you wanted to progress this and add more strength through that range of motion, we would just add an element of weight. Luckily, we have our dome here that can work as weight and some gravity for that. So I want you to tuck your chin first, really lengthening all this posterior cervical spine stuff, and then keeping your chin glued down towards your trachea, towards the top of your chest. I want you to now lift your head up off the floor. Pull that chin down as tight as you can, pulling it back and down that whole time as you're lifting from the forehead. Now we're going to pivot off that position and lift the chin as high as we can, extending, shortening all the stuff on the backside of our neck. Once our head touches the floor, we can tuck the chin and repeat. Tuck the chin as you lift. Once you can no longer squeeze that front side anymore, pull the head back as far as you can. And you can always reverse from there. So tilt the chin straight back. Now this is all going to be really long as we lift. So start nice and easy. Try and keep the shoulder blades down as you lift the head. And then you're trying to lengthen all this stuff by tucking that chin as hard as you can. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Squeeze all the way down and then head back against the floor. One last one. Pull back, lift, tuck, and down. So that is just a way that we can add another layer or another variety of neck cars that is just going to change the intensity of those. Again, I really like that one if you have some cervical spine or trap tightness. Let's go into the T-spine next. For the T-spine, we're going to get into a collapsed position. You can do this one seated instead if that's easier for you. I like this variation just because it's easier to teach. So I'm going to collapse, and I'm going to tilt my pelvis as far forward as I can get. So my lumbar spine is tilted forward. It's an extension. I'm going to plant my hands here, and what that's going to do is that's going to give me an idea of how my rib cage is moving relative to my arm. So from here, keeping my belly button pushing forward that whole time, I'm going to try and lift my chest up. Not really worried about what my chin is doing, but I'm certainly not moving from the chin very much. Lift my chest up and then crunch my rib cage down. This is a little bit harder because we're moving just the middle component of the spine. Lift that rib cage up, squeezing all of that T-spine stuff, and then crunching that rib cage down. Notice though, my pelvis isn't rounding. So if I go into thoracic flexion by crunching my rib cage and my pelvis tucks, I get that roundness through the low back. That's not what we're looking for. So this stays forward, and this is the piece that moves. Again, having a mirror in this for this stuff is really helpful. Recording yourself for it is really helpful. But most importantly, just spending time feeling the stuff move. That is our T-spine car, flex and extend. I'm trying to pull my chest through my biceps. And lastly, for the lumbar cat-cow, for this one, we're going to go into a collapsed quadruped position. And I want you to bring your knees kind of behind your hips as you go onto your elbows. So for this one, ideally we have something up against our rib cage. That's really helpful. Actually, I have a yoga block, so let me go grab that really quick. Sorry for that brief hiatus. So with the yoga block, we're going to pin that against our rib cage so that we're not getting that thoracic movement and we're driving all that tension into the lumbar spine. So if I get back into that collapsed position, I'm just going to rest that yoga block against my rib cage and I'm going to pull my knees slightly behind my hips. Now from here, I know my neck isn't going to move because I can prop it up against my fists if I want to, or I can just keep it still. I have a block, both a literal and a physical block, against my thoracic spine or my rib cage. So now the only movement I'm prioritizing is lumbar flexion and extension. So I'm going to tuck my pelvis as much as I can and extend my pelvis as much as I can. Tuck, consequently rounding the low back, and extend, arching the low back. Now if it's easier to go legs further behind you, that will give you access to more ranges of motion. The closer your knees are to your elbows, the harder it's going to be because that's just a ton of hip flexion, already biasing some compensation. Ooh. Okay, so those are 3 varieties of cars that you can do that are really targeted towards specific areas of the spine. The lumbar spine, thoracic, and cervical spine. If you're doing those and you're noticing that some pieces aren't moving, that's okay. Do your cat-cow pails and rails, practice your segmentation, and on the areas where you feel like you have the least movement, come back through and practice those specific cars for them, the thoracic cars or the lumbar cars. Give this stuff a shot, keep up with it, try and do this one as often as you can. If you have a cranky back, the more the better, I would say, so long as you're not getting any sort of pain. So remember, when you're doing pails and rails, always working at pretty mild intensities first, practicing that movement, and then we'll build up the strength to go at higher intensities. All right? Have a good day and happy